What is the current view of the Paradox team on the situation of EU5? How do they want to react to lots of the people's feedback? And most importantly, what's the plan for the rest of this year, for the next few free patches, as well as the DLCs that they already planned, the small DLCs for single countries. Let's see what is gonna happen. And if EU5 is gonna have a new start date. There's only a few more hours left of our super discounts for the Polish Constitution Day in our quality maps store. You can buy any posters for 120 different maps that are historical, gaming maps, maybe even your EU4 or EU5 campaign, or maps of the cities that honestly are the most underrated. These are goddamn beautiful. I recommend checking them out, and with the code ULM you can get 10% off. So first of all, we've got a few words from Johan summarizing how he sees feedback from the community and how they are reacting to that. I do recommend for you to just pause the video here and read it yourself, because there's a lot of good words here mentioning that they see the feedback, they do really appreciate the feedback, even if it's very negative, because it shows, the true part of the community, the most devoted part of the Europa Universalis and Paradox community, what they were expecting from the game, what the game delivered, what it did not deliver, and they taking into account every single feedback in Reddit, in the forum, and also under some of the YouTube videos. The first thing that he's saying is that they are acknowledging that while the goal of the game is to be more sandbox than the historical simulation compared to EU4, they went too far into this direction and they want to adjust it based on your feedback. So they want people to feel more and more with each of the patches that their nation, their game has a story that is worth telling. It's not just a historical sandbox and simulation. And about the historical agency is that they see that the people are saying that they don't want the railroading, but they want instead historical paths to feel achievable, not accidental in the sandbox. And there's a meaningful difference between forcing an outcome and making it feel within reach. So what they're looking to do is to improve how the dynamic historical events are showed to you and how they're designed. So from 1.2 patch you'll have an actual event viewer, so be able to understand what are the requirements for each of the events and outcomes, kind of like mission trees but without certain buffs. And they're planning to keep doing this dynamic historical events more discoverable, more consequential, and more connected to each other, avoiding the single one-off events. Another area that you see that needs improvements is general AI behavior, where in EU4, the AIs had some more personality layer and attitudes, exposed goals that you could understand and see where they're gonna expand. EU5 was lacking, especially in the first patches, and it is slowly improving. Like Conquest Desire system was introduced, which was not perfect, but they are making it improve. And now they're working on giving the AI a more legible face again, which is a hell of a job to do. So let's see how they want to achieve it in the other notes. So what Johan is saying is that what has changed isn't the vision, it is our understanding of what players need in order to experience that vision. A great simulation that players can't connect with emotionally isn't a great game. The community has kept us honest about that distinction, and the patches since launch reflect it. Each update has been shaped not just by internal review, but by the conversations happening in the forums, on Reddit, and the content creator community. Here's a reminder that if you purchase the EU5 Premium Edition, the Fate of the Phoenix, so the patch that is the DLC that is released tomorrow, as well as the other two DLCs in this year, so the Across the Pillars and the Old Alliance, they are included in that premium version, and these are mini patches focused on one or two nations. So the big DLCs, the actual DLCs, will be coming only next year. So what do you think? Now we're gonna have the 1.2 patch being released with and together with the Fate of the Phoenix DLC that has Balkans contact and trade rework, AI personalities, HRE overhaul, PayPal authority, logistics and troops, bureaucracies, and many more things. In the summer, they plan to release a fully free patch 1.3 called Pavia that's gonna have great powers rework, I'm gonna go straight to this next things because we're having them listed one by one here. So very quick summary about 1.2 because I've done many videos about it. We're gonna have changes touching your cities, armies, cabinets, Holy Roman Empire. There's a new feature called the urban rights for your urban locations, where you can grant there certain privileges. There is the new trade order system, where you can get automations a bit better for your goals on how it's taking care of your trade. On the military side, infantry and cavalry now have a proper light and heavy split, where light infantry moves faster and acts first, deals less damage and takes more morale hits, while heavy infantry is slower, penalty free, and the only type that can garrison forts. And obviously similar logic to the cavalry. There's also a new vassal's attitude, siege rider, that will focus on sieging with avoiding the battles. There's a big facelift to the HRE that is happening, where the Diet UI is now tapped and what is actually readable, which was hard before. And there's also a new Imperial Armory building that gives Emperors a real military tool, funneling local manpower to Imperial forces or providing direct recruitment on home territory. Your capital terrain type now reduces the proximity penalty for that same terrain by 20%, so if it's the Mantis, it's cheaper on the Mantis, etc. Characters also now have the health traits, represent the physical well-being. The cabinet members can also get cabinet traits, depending on what they are dealing with in your country. And this is just a few mentions, just many more mechanics and changes and UI improvements that you keep seeing once you start playing that game. In the patch 1.3, so the free patch, there will be rework of the Great Powers system, where they're going away from EU4 like system that is all about the global power, where they're adding regional great powers between minor powers and the great powers. Something people have been asking for, to not have Ming always the top great power. And they also changing the skull formula, I guess, for it to be more fair and not see Ming all the time. Estates will be doing their own culture and religion, independent from the crown, whatever it means. And there'll be new estates interaction. We know, for example, at war you need something ASAP from them, where you trade the long-term goodwill for immediate wartime relief. Reformation will spread more like it is, the Black Death is spreading, instead of this weird buildings that we're having right now. There'll be also a new feature where you'll be able to negotiate with the rebel factions before they revolt, so maybe not always you'll have to go into actual war. We'll be able to give them some stuff to not revolt instead. They changed in economy again in 1.3, mostly cutting the profit margins for the production buildings, where it's not the passive money printer but rather a genuine investment decision. They're also making the newly built production buildings ramp up slowly based on the local literacy. They're also introducing the price elasticity, so that the long trade routes have more sense to give you actual income. There's a rework of the mills, but I'll not go deeper into that. For 10 historical regions, they're giving static production bonuses reflecting the real world economic legacies, like Flemish cloth or Venetian glass. So how is it different, for example, in the northern Poland, single locations having urban bonus, or Cloths Islands having the cloth output? Is it something similar but rather for the region, not single locations? So maybe this is because the bonus that I mentioned are for the raw goods side, so this is more towards actual production in the provinces. There's a naval rebalance where the heavy ships are having much more penalties in the enclosed seas and straits, while the galleys should be actually usable over there. They're also changing how the cost modifiers are working, same to the proximity. They're changing the cost to actual efficiency, so the more of the costs stack, there are more diminishing returns, so the min-maxing and stacking modifiers is nerfed. There are new automations that are being added, including stuff for the cabinet controls, pair building auto expand flags, and fine-grained automated diplomacy toggles. Probably something similar to what we have in the macro build in EU4, I assume, like improving relations with X, with subjects, right? I'd love to not micromanage this at last. They also adding government bonds, what the hell it is, imperial circles, independent operations for armies, and credit worthiness system. In the free update of 1.4 Rio Salado, the focus will be to add a deeper sense of national aspiration and far-reaching. First feature that's gonna allow doing that are ambitions, which is about articulating your long-term goals. That will be also obviously dynamically interacted with the other nations, as well as expeditions, which is supposed to be an immersive narrative depth, allowing named characters to undertake monumental journeys, complete with unique event chains, consequential outcomes that will shape your nation's history. They're also making the dynastic gameplay a bit deeper, so I'd say this feels a bit like CK3. So I'm a bit afraid that, this many additional events might make the game just annoying, where, you don't only micromanage economy, but then you're also forced to micromanage out of the events, so this might, for example, need an automation for people that don't care about it. They also want to make the economic warfare more impactful in the game, especially if the trading policy hurting your possible rivals. They're adding camels as a trade good, as well as the camerly levies that will be in the game, while Catholics will get a bit of a rework of the cardinals. For now, it's just a building that you can then use to vote, and same crusade system is supposed to get an overhaul. Alongside the free patch, there will be Across the Pillars Chronicle pack, which will be exploring narrative around Castile, Morocco and Granada, while adding plenty of exciting content for them in early game. For the update 1.5 Orléans, it will be focused on the Western European states between 15th and 16th century, I guess mainly France, England and Scotland. And there will be plenty of mechanics that they aim to add in the free update. First of all, making the building-based countries, which is an amazing concept, but kinda boring so far. Like trade companies and state banks, they should get more flavor and content. They do plan to change the pop needs, so there will be now a split between your everyday needs, luxury needs, and life needs. There's some rework of the estates, how this generating the request to their needs, to give them a more distinct economic identity. And if your provinces and estates in these provinces are occupied, it'll be much harder to manage, obviously. Oh! Remember, before the release of the game, there was no, we'll never do two-sided peace deals, where you can exchange something. Looks like they're changing their mind, and it might be introduced in that 1.5 patch. It might be very exploitable, like it's Civilization, right, guys? So they want to make it a bilateral negotiation, where both sides can put demands on the table, funded by their own war score, so wars end with both parties gaining something rather than one side simply dictating terms. There'll be a new layer to management of your subjects, where individually with every single subject you will be able to negotiate some clauses, that will cover the loyalty, building rights, war obligations, and making the vassal management feel more like genuine statecraft. At the same time, remember 1.2 patch, they're nerfing the subjects, so maybe you'll not have to handle 50 subjects anymore. Christianity as a whole will get a rework, allowing more natural schism and mendings along theological lines. And yeah, they're reminding which countries are covered in the DLC itself. For the update 1.6 and beyond, we have further plans for the new bookmarks. So the new start dates, that's how they understand the bookmarks in Paradox, right? When they announce it, for example, for Crusader Kings. Let me know in comments what date you would like to see as a bookmark in EU5. 1444? I don't think they're gonna do 1444, but what else, like 1490s, maybe 1500s, maybe starts of the 30 Years War, that seems a bit too far, or maybe even much later. I think the first bookmark that they should be aiming for is around the start of like speeding up of the colonization and speeding up of the Reformation. So maybe the start of the Reformation could be a good bookmark. But yeah, besides that, they want to improve the horde gameplay and much more, and they're begging for more feedback. So if you goddamn hate all these changes, hate them, but tell them why. and what you think should be different to make this more cool. Looking at the comment section, because there's more there, Riagi is mentioning that for the patch 1.2 they are planning some additions to improve the AMD users experience. Someone's asking where the fuck are fixes for the situations? Well, Pavia is mentioning here that even for 1.2 there are already 50 notes on different fixes and changes to the situations, and they will gradually keep improving them, again based on your feedback. And I think the situations, for me at least, it is the biggest feature of EU5, replacing together dynamic historical events the mission trees. And really, the situations have much more potential than any mission trees that you had in EU4 to give you content, flavor and fun. They just need to be done well, which is much harder than build a simple mission tree. But let's hope they keep improving that so it actually brings us a lot of fun. So by saying 1.2 Echinades update, Balkan content looks inside, Byzantium content. 1.2 has 200 advances for Balkan nations, so that's what it is referring to. However, all of this is in the free update. Oh yeah, 300 new advances for the Balkans, 140 dynamic historic events, new countries, seafront privileges and much more. I think I'm not gonna play Byzantium for the release of 1.2 because everyone's gonna play Byzantium. I'm gonna play one of the other Balkan nations. They also confirming 1.3 patch will have the open beta. It's a fully free patch, so that's great. You guys will be able to leave feedback soon. They saying July, right? So that's very soon. Someone is double checking. What do you mean by bookmark? New start dates. And to further follow on the start dates are still by far the most costly complex content assets we can make. Ginormous manpower cost. You know, if you do this, every DLC you add, you have to like include in every start date, run QA by every start date. There is more issues, rebalances that you have to do, but I think this is really much based also on the feedback of the community, because they didn't plan to do it, but so many people are saying it takes too long to get to colonization and reformation that they actually list. And what he's saying, but after a lot of discussions we feel like it's a good thing to try doing because of immersive players value that a well-designed later start date can bring. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel to get notified about the future videos. Tomorrow I do plan to release my first video on the patch 1.2, and of course do check our strategy maps.co map print store. Bye!